got the 350 home today. It came out of a 70. I don't know exactly what year. I believe it's a 71. He said it's got number 7 heads. Um, and it looks to be about right. It's got the right year balancer and all that stuff. Some of the later year balancers are a little different, but the balancer's correct for the year of the engine. Uh, it's it's a runner. I mean, it came out of a running car. Um, I know the guy. I have no reason to believe what he was telling me was not correct. So that's a big plus. So I know that this engine's going to be in at least pretty good shape. And the one valve cover that was loose, it looks like typical gunk you're going to get out of a 50-year engine. It's not completely gunked up, but there's a little bit of gunk in there. Um, so I guess I could talk to you guys about um, the goal. So probably about 11 years ago, I built an engine, and my experience was pretty limited at the time. I mean, at that time, I think I had the car for maybe 3 years or so, and at that point, I decided to build a little bit more of a stout engine than what was in there at the time, which is actually the engine in the Pontiac. And I started to kind of gather parts, and I learned a lot even throughout that process. So it was kind of I built the engine and it worked, and I think in many ways, looking back, I got lucky, just lucky enough for it to be pretty good. What ultimately killed that engine was the fact that I ran cast flat tops W31 piston with really loose piston to wall clearance, and I ended up breaking like 4 skirts. Engine ran great, but there was like a faint little knock I could hear around 4,000 RPM, and I'm like, what's going on? So I took the engine apart, and lo and behold, there was 4 broken skirts on it, and 2 of them were actually laying in the pan. But the engine still ran great. So that particular engine combination was a Comp 280 H-Cam. I had number 6 heads with just big valves and a little bit of bowl work just to make room for the valve. I had RPM intake, Comp roller tip rockers, pretty basic stuff. The car ran 13 threes with a 373 gear and a 2200 stall, and a very inexperienced me behind the wheel in tuning. It had a very small carburetor as well for the setup. I had a 600 Edelbrock on there. It really needed a lot more. And I did eventually up the carburetor and the torque converter, but at that point, after that, I realized something was going on with the engine noise-wise. So, let me straighten out my knee here. So anyway, this is kind of like, you ever look back and think what you could have done then with what you know now? This is kind of what this is going to be. So for me, the goal is going to be to have an engine that I can put in either car, the Pontiac or the Olds. So in the Pontiac, I still have to have enough vacuum for brakes. And on the Olds, it still has to run somewhere within the 12s. So knowing what I know from my previous experience running like 13 threes, I think this engine should be able to run 12s with the combination that I have in mind. And I am going to be using the Performer intake that's already on here. So I got the engine at a really good price. It's got a Performer intake on it already, and it's got pretty good heads, number 7 heads, and I think that it should be somewhere in the 12s. So the game plan, as far as all that goes, is going to be, we're going to use the Speed Pro flat tops that I have. We're going to use that block. We're going to end up using the crank from this engine, the balancer, the flywheel flex plate, the heads, the intake. Now the engine is going to see proper machining as necessary. Hopefully the crank is good in this and it just needs a polish. That would be a big plus because it would keep our cost there. We're going to need to balance it because we got rods, we got stuff that we're kind of matching together. Now they're all factory components, but they still need to be balanced so everything matches pretty good. And the Speed Pro pistons, everybody calls them heavy, but they were designed to be used in a stock application with very little changes in the balance as far as drilling and cutting up and stuff. So it's not the best piston. It's kind of an archaic design. It's pretty much based around the stock piston, and it's very true to that. Every single engine I've ever checked that stocks, it's about 25 thousandths in the hole. Most Speed Pros sit about 25 thou in the hole. So that's going to be our game plan. As far as that goes, the compression, I'm going to want it around 10 to 1. We're going to be running the Comp 280H But I'm going to be using the Lunati Microtrol, whatever you want to call it, lifters, because I can run them at zero preload. Little tricks that I've learned, I'm going to apply to this engine. I'm going to be porting the cylinder heads. I'm going to talk to my buddy Dave, who ported my cylinder heads, for a little bit of guidance. Hopefully, the goal is to share that information with you guys, and maybe if he's up for it, he can do some videos and really give you his expertise behind it all. He's got really good information from years of doing it. He did my cylinder heads, and essentially, I'm going to port the heads. I'm going to do what he tells me to do based off of the combination. And I honestly think for our combination, considering our intake and what we're going to be doing, we're going to stick to the critical areas, which I'll touch on later. I am going to be porting the manifold, the intake manifold. I'm going to be milling the divider or grinding it down. And I'm going to be opening up the ports on the Performer to whatever we're going to end up doing on the cylinder head to match it at least. And I think it's going to be a really fun project. I think it should be good for 12s. I think my goal would be somewhere in the 1280s, 1260s would be pretty good. I think if this engine can make 350 to 370 in my current setup, I think that this car should be able to go somewhere in the mid 12s. Based off of what I got right now, I'm making really good use of the power that I have now with my engine. I think in most setups, my engine that's in my car would probably be in the low 12s. In my car, it's running at 1160s so far best, but I got good suspension, good rear end gear, good converter, you know, the transmission's been worked, and I got experience behind the wheel, which that really affects it. I've gotten a lot better in the last couple of years driving and tuning as well. So I think this is a little bit of a redemption build for me, where I can apply what I've learned and really have fun with this. I kind of want to make this look like a stock W31, and if I can swing it, I would love to have a Quadrajet built for this, because that would just tie it all up, right? Yeah, I would really love like a W31 themed engine where it looks stock, but it's going to rip, and I've always wanted to do that, and this is the perfect engine for that. The cam that I got in mind, I know is going to pull enough vacuum for power brakes, just enough, and it'll be good to 6,000 RPM. I know that in the past with that cam, I spun that engine up to 6, and I knew that it still had room for growth as RPM there. But I got a game plan going. My buddy Joe out of Texas, we talked. He's got a bunch of parts that he's going to sell me at a good deal. So in that parts, what's going to comprise of those parts is going to be like bearings, all good stuff that we're going to be able to use. And I think we're probably all said and done. I ran the numbers depending on the machine shop build. This engine, all said and done, is probably including the price of what it's cost me for these pieces. So considering the fact that I have $300 tied in the block, the pistons, and the Moroso oil pan, I got $200 in this. We're already at $500. $175 into the Harlan Sharps that I'm going to end up using on my car, but the drivetrain, the valve train components that are going to come out of the Cutlass are going to go into this. It'll be perfect for our use. And considering the push rods, everything we're going to need, and again, assuming that we're going to need some of the stuff, but I have to factor it in, this engine, it looks like it's going to be somewhere between $3,300 to $3,500 to build, considering all these parts that I've accumulated, horse traded, but I factored in the value of all that stuff. So again, I'll break that stuff down later as we get going on this build. And I think I'm really looking forward to it, but we're going to have to wait. So I hope you guys are patient, and hopefully we can really start kind of working on this somewhere towards the end of February. As soon as I know I mentioned it in the other video, as soon as I'm done buttoning up the intake manifold on the little 347 stroker I've been working on, we're going to wait because I have to cover parts. And really right now it's like, yeah, I'm going to fire it up. I'd like to get it fired up somewhere closer to the spring, because in the spring people start getting hot to trot and they try to get their cars together. It works out better to sell parts usually in the fall when people are starting to get into the projects, or in the spring when people really want to get their cars out. So a little tip for you guys selling parts out there, the time to sell, or tax season around spring, so it works out pretty good. So I'm going to wait on that strategy there. But in the next couple of weeks, I plan on getting everything together to build that Turbo 350 that I've been putting off. That's for a friend of a friend. Actually, my friend Dave, it's his friend's transmission. I've had it for a couple months now. I think he gave it to me back, and not a couple months. He gave it back to me back in June when we hung out, him and his girlfriend. My wife, we all hung out. We all went out, had a nice night. But that transmission, I'm gonna go through it. He wants just a stock style rebuild, so I'm gonna cover the kit on that. And I do have a shift kit lying around, so I'm going to put a shift kit in it, but it's going to be just a pretty much stockish turbo 350. We'll make videos on that as we go. I got a really good video already up that my other buddy Dave. I got too many Daves in my life that we did back when we did the Bonneville, and that was a really good video. Along with the videos that I had already made for that project as well, he edited one for me, and it came out really nice. So hopefully you guys stick around and we can get this thing going and started. And once this is done, it's going to go in my car, and the engine that's in my car is going to come out. It's going to get freshened up. And I'm picking up a transmission with a trans brake. So since this engine isn't going to make quite the power that the current engine is, I wouldn't be afraid of putting a trans brake on it and just putting like a 2000 chip in it and launching it and having fun with it. That should be a lot of fun. And if not, then we'll just run it with the current transmission, and it should still be plenty stout on the brake. Again, it'll be just a fun little setup to slow down the car, focus on driving with the olds. I'm still going to race the Pontiac primarily, but with the work that's going to need to get done to the olds in preparation to take full advantage of my current engine, which we're going to be putting a 433 in it. That turbo 350 with the trans brake. I'm planning on putting a cage on the car, boxing the frame, moving some weight around. It's going to take some time and some money, so I don't want to completely continue to use the car in that form that I have it right now, because I really want to go through the engine, make sure everything is good, freshen up as needed, and then build the rear end, put a cage in it, and then hopefully what will be the winter, so next fall, my idea is to get the car ready for a cage and stuff and all that stuff. So it's going to take some planning, but either way, the main project is going to be getting this engine done when the time comes. So I just figured, I know I've been talking about it, figured I'd tell you guys. I think it'll be a really fun build, and I think this will be a really good adaptable engine for a lot of guys that want plenty of pep, and you can use some pretty cheap parts. I mean, you can get the Performer intake used for $100 to $120, and the old Speed Pro pistons are still around, used, they're floating around. A lot of guys are going to lighter SRPs, Molly pistons, and all that stuff. So this is a kind of a really nice all-around build that's going to be as proper as we can make it and work within a budget. So it's not going to be like an extreme budget, but it's going to be something that'll be really nice, I think. So we'll let you guys go. Share, like, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. I guess just give me some feedback on it, what you guys think. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, Copper Cutlass as always. So I'm going to go in and go scrape my walls some more, because I got house projects too.